How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Drew Johnson. You can find us both on Twitter at Dalton_Trigg and at Coach Drew33. Give us a follow there. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. And be sure to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It really helps us out when you do that. It also enters you for a chance to win future giveaways. So be sure to do that. I know I've been promising, we're going to be doing a t-shirt giveaway here pretty soon. But the reason it's taken so long is because I'm waiting on a new design, to come up on our T Public store before we do that. So I'm not going to spoil it. I will post it on Twitter though when we do have it ready, and we're going to do a giveaway. We're going to give away a couple of those to start out. So DJ, we got a lot to talk about. Mavs free agency, some potential trades that we could still be waiting on. And you have restricted free agency that starts later this week. And that plus a couple of hypothetical, expected trades with stars around the league that the rest of the NBA is waiting on. That's what's holding everything up. But let's get into it.
Hi, this is Luka Doncic.
Can he get it away in time on the step back? He does! He hits! He hits! And the Mavericks have won the game! Luka Doncic with a 30-footer to win it at the horn!
And you're listening to the Mavs Step Back Podcast.
All right, so the biggest part of Mavs free agency that we have to lead off with, DJ, is Kyrie Irving is coming back to Dallas. It was something that was expected to happen. Everything from his production to the way he got along with Luka and Jason Kidd and Nico Harrison, and he really enjoyed his time in Dallas, even though the season didn't end the way they wanted it to. He really enjoyed his time in Dallas. He loved the media in Dallas, the way we cover him. Everything just was good vibes aside from the Mavs not having enough depth, to close out games. And sure enough, despite all the rumors, despite all the speculation, he was going to have other meetings with teams at the beginning of free agency. The Mavs come in with a 3-year, $126 million offer. And Kyrie Irving and his representation canceled all of those other meetings that they were going to have and just said, okay, yep, we're back. So good for the Mavs getting that out of the way, making it no drama. Considering that Kyrie was eligible for a 5-year max contract of up to, I believe it was $270 million, 3 years, $126 million is a pretty good contract in my opinion for him, and it's a two years and then a player option for the 3rd year. So for a guy that is in his prime, for a guy that averages 27 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, a little over 1 steal a game on near 50-40-90 efficiency, I think this is a pretty solid deal for the Mavs. And the most important thing is, you didn't trade 2 starters in Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie and a 2029 unprotected first-round pick for just 20 games of Kyrie Irving in a season where you didn't even make the play-in tournament. So that's the biggest thing. That's what everybody was worried about. It's like, surely they'll be able to bring him back after trading that for him. He's not going to walk, right? But no. Kyrie Irving is back. He's going to give it another go with Luka. The offensive numbers were off the charts with that duo, and now they've added a little bit more defense with the draft, and they're hoping to do more, in the coming weeks to fill out the roster around them with more defense and rebounding. So we'll see how that goes. But what's your initial thoughts on Kyrie Irving coming back to Dallas?
Honestly, thank God. I was getting a little anxious, seeing that he was having these meetings with other teams and stuff. I was like, oh no. But I don't think will ever fully atone for the whole Jalen Brunson fiasco, but this is a start. I mean, thank God.
Oh yeah, man, the Brunson thing, that was such a dark cloud. And like, look, I get it. Brunson is what, 5-6 years younger than Kyrie, and he's on a pretty solid contract himself. You know, he signed 4 years, $100 million with the Knicks. But I mean, if you're comparing them side by side, Kyrie is the better player. I mean, it's not even. I mean, I know people look at the stats and think it's close. It's not close. I think that Kyrie Irving is by far the better player. He has proven that he can show out on the highest level in the NBA Finals. He won a title with the Cavs and LeBron back in 2016. He's had several really high-level playoff performances, and I think, you know, if the Mavs can find a way to get back into the postseason, it's going to be really hard to knock out Luka and Kyrie in a playoff setting. That's just my opinion on it. And I think, you know, you look back, and I understand people are waiting for more to happen with this Mavs offseason, but they've had a good offseason so far. They knocked the draft out of the park, in my opinion. They filled 2 big needs. Well, 3 big needs, really. They got off of Davis Bertans' contract. They drafted the guy that they were going to draft at 10 anyway, and Derek Lively, the second. They were going to draft him with the 10th pick, and they ended up getting him anyway with the 12th pick. And then they used that trade exception from trading Bertans to get Omax Prosper and Rashawn Holmes from the Kings with that trade exception. So, and I mean, look, I know Rashawn Holmes, he may or may not be on this roster by the time training camp comes. They may end up packaging him and trading him for something else. But if they don't, I mean, I could potentially see where he could even help next season based on what the Mavs front court was last year, at least, you know, because he's had some personal stuff go on with, I think, like maybe with his child. I think it was a custody battle he was in or something like that. Had that stuff going on. He had a couple of eye injuries, I think, that he's coming back from. But look, the only game that Rashawn Holmes started last year for the Kings, he went like 7 of 7, and he had a big double-double. So, I mean, look, the Mavs would take that kind of production, and we'll see how it goes. But the thing is, the Mavs have lost so many games on the margins. If you look at last year, they played a league high 55 or 56 clutch games, I think what it was. So well over half of the games were clutch games, and they lost 29 of them. So that 29 games that you lost on the margins, you know, it wasn't about star power. It was about the rest of the guys. And I think they have improved already enough on the margins to where they can win a lot more of those games next year. And they still have work to do. I'm not saying that, you know, I'm satisfied with this offseason yet, but I am happy with what they've done so far. Not just for this next season, but for the future too, with Lively and Prosper. It's looking, everything is trending up for the Mavs right now, in my opinion. And you know, I'm ready to see how the new guys get integrated and how they all fit with Luka and Kyrie together, because I mean, I have a good feeling for how this next season can go. I mean, the chemistry is going to continue to get better. You know, when Kyrie Irving was first traded to the Mavs, Luka was still injured. So he played his first like 3 games, I think, without Luka, and then Luka came back, and Kyrie got injured at some point and had to miss a few games, and then Luka got injured again. I mean, it was just back and forth. It didn't have enough time to build a lot of chemistry with the rest of the roster, and you know, their personal chemistry. Even though they had great offensive numbers, they only played with each other like 14, 15 games, something like that. So
Wasn't much.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm really excited about it. The Mavs also signed Seth Curry. It's the 3rd time since when was it? 2016, 2017. I think so. It's Seth Curry's third stint. He shoots 45.2. Hold on, no, 43. Hold on, I tweeted it earlier, and now I have forgotten it. But let's see. For his career, he shoots 43.5% from three, which is sixth all time in NBA history. He shot a career high 45.2% from three his last stint in Dallas in the 2019-2020 season. And not a coincidence that career high from three was when, his only season of his career where he's played with Luka Doncic. So super excited to see how that turns out. But, aside from Kyrie, what are you most excited about from, what the Mavs have done so far, whether it's, the draft with the new guys, signing Seth Curry, Dwight Powell re-signing, which Mavs Twitter is super thrilled about, being very sarcastic about that. They're not thrilled about it. But what are you looking most forward to, assuming that we're not done here, and I don't think we're done?
Well, whenever we were back, like even back when the season was still going on, we talked about what this team needed. And, to me, initially what needed to be, addressed first and foremost was rim protection. And I felt like we did that in Derek Lively. I know some people aren't that big of a fan of him, and I understand why, but the guy comes in and is able to do what we need him to do. And that is catch lobs, switch on the pick and roll, rebound, and most importantly, block shots. Now, I would still like us to make a move later on for, say, a DeAndre Ayton or something like that, just to give us some insurance and for us to not have to throw Lively in the fire right away. But I feel like we knocked that pick out of the park. But I think it's arguably even more interesting what they did with their later pick in Omax. I think that he is a very DFS kind of guy. I think that he's maybe a little bit more offensively gifted than Dorian. So I would say that I'm probably the most excited about what we did in the draft. Close second, of course, is Kyrie Irving. That was necessary. I felt like, we need him. We need him. If we're going to be contenders now, we need him. And, the Curry signing, I like. We do need more shooting. You can always use more shooting. I worry about him defensively, but we've already seen what his defensive limitations are. So it's nothing that we're not already accustomed to seeing. There's not much mystery with Curry. He's going to come in. He's going to knock down threes. He's going to be a really good dish out guy, for Luka to hit in the corner for easy 3-point opportunities. Powell, I hate that we spent money on him, but whatever.
The 3 years, $12 million. I'm not upset with the amount. I get it. I think he is a solid. I'm trying to be not. He is a solid regular season center, but that doesn't mean
he's a good culture guy too. I think he's a good culture guy as well.
Exactly.
I just he
just shouldn't be starting. He shouldn't be the starting center.
No. And to be fair, he should have never been put in the situation that he was put in initially. That is our failing as an organization, not Powell's fault by any means. But, I think that we really, really need to sign a starting caliber center. And I don't really turn my nose up to Andre Drummond. Honestly, again, like Lively, he does what we need him to do. How many times have we actually thrown the ball to the post? Granted, we never really had a true post threat, but how many times have we honestly thrown the ball to the post? It's just not part of our game plan. It just isn't. So
we need a guy who knows what his role is.
Yeah.
Grab all the rebounds possible, set screens, roll. If you get the ball, you get the ball. If not, you've opened up space for whoever you're setting the screen for. That's who the Mavs need as their starting center. And Derek Lively, even before the draft, he was talking about his potential fit with the Mavs. And, he voiced that he knew if he ended up in Dallas, that would be his role, and he accepted that. So I'm looking forward to see how ready he is. I know it takes NBA big men a little bit more time to get acclimated than, guards or forwards that, know how to dribble and shoot and everything. They usually hit the ground running. Big men, it's a little bit different because, they have to get in the NBA weight room. They have to add a little bit more muscle. And, you have to, I don't know. It's just a different game. It's a different game in the NBA than it is in college. But I do think the way the Mavs play, and I mean, they run a ton of pick and roll, which, most NBA teams just run a ton of pick and roll these days. So I do think it's going to be a little bit easier transition for Lively than what most people think. But the biggest thing with him is just going to be to get in the weight room, add some more muscle, add some more definition, and just keep doing what you're doing. Because, I think once he gets that done in a couple of years, we're not going to be talking about the Mavs having to sign or trade another center. He's going to be the guy.
Yeah.
They just want somebody that's already there physically, and, just so they don't have to push Lively further than what he probably needs to go in his rookie year. So we'll see how it goes. But you mentioned DeAndre Ayton. I kind of think that ship has sailed just because, one, Phoenix has already filled out their roster. That's not saying that they still can't trade Ayton, but, the idea was to trade something, like Tim Hardaway Jr., Rashawn Holmes, and JaVale McGee was the reported offer for Ayton on draft night. And, the Suns did not want JaVale McGee. They probably didn't want Rashawn Holmes either, but I don't know that for sure. But I do know for sure that they didn't want JaVale McGee, so it didn't go through. Now, it would have to be – it wouldn't just be a thing where you could trade 2 or 3 for one player because, the Suns only have so many roster spots. I guess they could cut some people or something, but I think now, and especially with their last signing, they got Eric Gordon, who is older than Tim Hardaway, about 4 years older than Tim Hardaway Jr., but the production is about the same. He shoots better percentages than THJ, so I feel like they don't need Tim Hardaway Jr. anymore, and I feel like that Ayton ship is sailed. But some other trade options, and we've written about all of these at DallasBasketball.com, so you guys listening, go over there and check out some of our scenarios we've thrown together and see what you think. But I look at Atlanta with Clint Capella. I think that is a realistic option. That is a team that the Mavs talked with on draft night. And, before they traded with OKC, they were talking with Atlanta about potentially swapping pick 10 and 15. But the Mavs wanted Capella. The Hawks wanted to trade John Collins instead of Capella, which, the Mavs didn't want him because of his he's on a bad contract, in my opinion. So I was okay with that. But that could be something that they circle back to, because the report said that the Hawks were insistent that the Mavs include Jaden Hardy or Josh Green in that deal for Capella, and the Mavs didn't want to do that. And, since then, the Hawks, they made a trade with the Houston Rockets, and they got Ty Washington and Usman Garuba from Houston. It was basically a salary dump deal, and they got both of those players for basically nothing. So I look at that, and I'm thinking, well, does that make it to where Atlanta might not be as insistent on getting Josh Green or Jaden Hardy from the Mavs? And if so, maybe they revisit that and they end up getting Capella. Another scenario I look at, our guy Mark Stein reported that the Cleveland Cavaliers are more open to trading Jarrett Allen than what they've been leading on, this whole offseason. So
he would be awesome.
He would be awesome. And there have actually been reports in the last 4 or 5 months that, Cleveland is one of those teams that legitimately has had interest in Tim Hardaway Jr. There were talks about a Tim Hardaway Jr. for Karis LeVert trade around the trade deadline last year. So we know that the Cavs have some interest in Hardaway Jr., and his contract almost lines up perfectly. Let's see, THJ is making $17 million a year. Allen is making $20 million a year. So, say, Tim Hardaway Jr., JaVale McGee, and say they throw in a pick instead of having to give up Hardy or Green. Maybe that works. Now, do they want to burn that 2027 first-round pick for Jarrett Allen when you just, drafted Derek Lively, who is really supposed to be your center for the future? I don't know. I don't know what their thinking would be there, but that's something you have to look at. Another scenario with, and I'm just kind of throwing these out as we've seen them over the last few days, but the Clippers, they're supposedly open to trading Zubac. I'm not going to try to pronounce his first name, but Zubac, he's got 2 years left on his current deal, makes $10 million a year. That would be a solid option for the Mavs too. And then, like you said, Drummond, the Mavs were expected to sign Drummond in free agency, probably over Powell, but he decided to opt into his $3 million option with the Chicago Bulls. So the only way he could find his way to Dallas now is via trade. So that's why that didn't happen. If he had opted out, he'd probably be a Dallas Maverick right now, but it didn't happen that way. So that's some of the, the big center options that I could see the Mavs ending up doing. And Yusuf Nurkic in Portland, because Damian Lillard, he finally requested a trade, and everybody been saying Portland's not going anywhere. If he wants to win, he probably needs to go ahead and ask out. He didn't do it for so long. Well, he's finally done it. They're reportedly working on trading Lillard to, I think the main suitors have been the Miami Heat, the Philadelphia 76ers. I think I saw the Utah Jazz are trying to get their way in there.
And the Boston Celtics.
And the Boston Celtics are in there. I saw the San Antonio Spurs listed as a dark horse.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of stuff going on there. James Harden is reportedly wanting out of the Philadelphia 76ers. So the league is kind of stuck right now waiting to see what happens with those situations. And depending on what happens, there could be third teams involved, other pieces, maybe, in a trade for Dame, the team Dame goes to, maybe Portland tries to trade Yusuf Nurkic as well, but that team getting Dame doesn't want Nurkic, so they would need a third team to take it. And guess what? The Mavs need a center. Maybe they can get involved there and, get a guy like that as their starting five. So there's so many different scenarios. It's kind of, you can't, we would be on here all day trying to go through all the different things that could happen. But, it's stuff like that I look at and, I wonder what the possibilities are like. So, for example, and I'm rambling here, so bear with me, but say the Celtics, for example, say they end up trading for Dame. If you look at their starting five, or if you look at their biggest contracts on the roster, who is going to be the casualty there? I would say, since they just traded for Porzingis and signed him to a new extension, that Al Horford might be the odd man out if that happened. And Al Horford would be an amazing stopgap center for the Mavs. So, there's all kinds of different possibilities that can come from these trades, and we just have to wait and see how they unfold. Now, if he goes to Miami, I don't really see anything that would be interesting that could happen for the Mavs there, but maybe like Cody Martin or something. I don't know, but he's not a center, so
no.
But I mean, out of all those options, is there somebody you would prefer that they end up getting as their starting center, or you just are you okay with rolling out Lively and just seeing what happens, or maybe even Rashawn Holmes? I don't know.
I would like a starter caliber center and to be able to play Lively behind him for at least a little while. You know, the Al Horford thing intrigues me because Al Horford, I don't know how many years he's got left. You know, I don't know how much
Not
longer he's going to
many.
be in the league. Yeah, so that might be a pretty good little exchange of power there. But I love Jarrett Allen. I love him. He's exactly what we need, honestly. So,
And he's a Texas native.
yeah. So, you know, maybe we could swing that. Like I said, I wouldn't turn my nose up at Drummond. And honestly, Drummond is another guy that, you know, maybe after 2 or 3 years, Lively will surpass him. But I'm all about accumulating assets. We need to get the best possible player we can in this scenario for obvious reasons. So, Charles, I'm sorry.
Hey, it's okay. Look, I'm winging this episode. I told you because I'm in my truck here. I've got my little buddy over here too. This is Chance, everybody.
Yes, he's much less involved than Harles is.
The only Rhodesian Ridgeback Dotson mix I've ever known in my time living on this earth. So he is very unique, and I love him. But anyway,
but yeah, you know, if I had to say my favorite, it would probably be Jarrett Allen.
Well, and again, that might be the most realistic option. Because I mean, look, as many guards as the Mavs have on their roster right now, you have to think that a Tim Hardaway Jr. trade is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's now or a week from now or sometime before training camp starts, you have to think that Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to get traded. Mm-hmm. He's been in trade rumors for the last 2 trade deadlines. Well, basically since he signed his deal that he's on right now, he's been in trade rumors. And they would have traded him the season before last, but then he got injured and they couldn't trade him. But I have to think the Seth Curry signing is a signal that they're going to trade Tim Hardaway Jr. before it's said and done. Because if you don't, then you risk having a situation where Kidd maybe doesn't give Jaden Hardy the minutes he needs coming off the bench because you have a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. who's a veteran and making X amount of money, and Kidd might feel obligated, you know, to give Hardaway those minutes. And they need to avoid that situation at all costs. So I think the Jarrett Allen thing is probably the most realistic, especially since the Cavs have shown interest in him. So I'm with you. I think that would be excellent. And he's not making, I mean, it's $20 million, but, you know, he does everything the Mavs need from the center position. And $20 million for Jarrett Allen sounds a lot better to me than $32 million for DeAndre Ayton.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or if you look in Minnesota, what they're doing with Gobert is making like $43 million a year. But anyway,
yeah. Also, I think that it would take less to make Jarrett Allen happy than it would to keep DeAndre Ayton happy, just from, you know, how much he gets the ball perspective. You know, I think Allen's kind of got the same mentality that Lively's got coming in. You know, do your job, whereas Ayton has got visions of grandeur. And I'm not saying Ayton isn't good, but I don't know if Ayton really fits in with the dynamic that we need. You know, you've got 2 extremely ball-dominant guards that are our primary offensive weapons right now. It would be very hard for us to implement, you know, involvement with the post fluidly without really just screwing things up. Where outside the pick and roll, whereas, you know, Lively and Allen and potentially Drummond, you just throw them a lob every now and again, and they're good. So, like I said, I think the Allen one is the best one.
I think Allen would be a great role model for Lively. Mm-hmm. You know, just the prototype. Like I think he would be a great role model, especially how Allen filled out. You know, when he got to the league, where he started to where he's at now. You know, he could provide a lot of experience, and really Powell could too, because Powell's, you know, added a ton of muscle since he first started out in the league. I've always said this before, you know, we give Powell a lot of grief, and the fan base gives Powell a lot of grief because, you know, of his lack of rebounding and everything. if his arms were about 3 inches longer, he would be, I'm not going to say an all-star player, but we would not have any complaints about Powell if he had a little bit longer arms, because he is just about that close from getting, he would be getting 10 rebounds a game if his length synced up with his effort.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more physical limitations for Powell than anything else. But
Yeah, no, I agree.
But yeah, I think, a combination of Powell and his locker room presence, his, like you said, the culture that he's kind of helped establish. And then you bring in a guy like Allen that Lively can learn from, how he takes care of his body, how he built himself up. And then you add in the fact that Lively can actually shoot a little bit from the perimeter. That's going to be the biggest thing for Lively too, that, can separate himself from, all the other guys, because he can be your prototypical type of center, set screens, block shots. But then if he's also able to step out and hit a three every now and then too, while being that prototypical center, that would be amazing too. Because you look at guys like Porzingis and Karl Anthony Towns and some of these guys that, can hit the 3-point shot, but they're not really your prototypical type of center. And that's the type of center that you need when you have a guy like Luka, because Luka plays best with that type of guy. So, and another thing with Allen too, and this is no disrespect whatsoever to Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Those two guys are tremendous. They're all-star caliber players. They had a fantastic year in Cleveland this past year, but I like Allen running several pick and rolls with Luka and Kyrie much more than with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. So I think the potential, Allen's ceiling gets raised a little bit in Dallas versus what it is right now in Cleveland. So
right. And at the very least, you at least get to see Allen in a very similar scenario that he would be in Dallas. 2 ball dominant guards, 2 ball dominant scoring guards that run a lot of PNR. So, I think Allen would be a great fit. Like if anything, it's amplified, like you said. Like I think that he'd be great here.
And there's still, and I mean, we're going to end it right here, and we'll come back on here and talk about anything else that happens later this week, and maybe there'll be some other trades and restricted free agency. That doesn't start until Thursday because restricted free agents can't officially sign offer sheets until Thursday. So there's still stuff going on with that. The Mavs have reported interest in Grant Williams from the Celtics, who I know you really like. You think he would be an excellent fit in Dallas, and I agree with you. Shoots 43% from three for his career in the postseason, plays excellent defense. I think that, he would fit in quite well in Dallas. Matisse Thybulle is another guy that they've been interested in. His offense is really rough, but, he's a very hectic defender, and depending on what the price is, that might be an okay option. And then the Christian Wood stuff, we don't know what's going to happen with Christian Wood. We know he's not coming back to Dallas, at least we think. Mavs Twitter kind of got up in arms the other day because he had unfollowed the Mavs on social media, and then he recently refollowed them. And everybody was thinking, well, what's going on here? But no, Christian Wood is not coming back to the Mavs. Now, wherever he does sign, it might end up being a sign and trade, and maybe the Mavs can get a piece from another team with that kind of situation. I know the Charlotte Hornets have been interested in him at one point, and, they have guys like say, PJ Washington, for example. That could be an interesting sign and trade situation. And then that way you have a guy that can start at the 4 instead of having to force, Maxey to start, or even Omax is a rookie starting at the 4. So lots of stuff going on, man. I know it's our heads have been spinning for the last week, really the last couple of weeks, because it starts with the draft and then free agency right after that, restricted free agency coming up, summer league after that, and then there's a little bit of a dead period, but really not, because then, the World Cup basketball stuff will happen with Luka. We'll be watching him play. And then next thing you know, it's training camp and it's starting up all over again. So it's just this NBA stuff is just an endless loop, but I love it. I love it. I love what the Mavs have done so far, and I'm excited to see what they do here in the next week or so, because I know people are restless. I know they are impatient. They want, the Mavs to fill every hole that they had in one offseason. But I said from the beginning, before we even started the offseason, that's probably not possible. Now, if Nico Harrison comes out here and does it, more power to him. He's had a great offseason so far, but it's just really hard to fill that many holes in one offseason. And he's had to try and, clean up the mistakes of the previous front office. And he's still not done with that, because we still owe the Knicks a pick from that Porzingis deal that we didn't have to give him this year. Thank goodness. That turned out really well for the Mavs. But, he's done a really good job, and I'm excited to see where he goes from here, because he has had a great offseason, in my opinion. So, guys, we appreciate y'all coming in and listening every single week. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe on all your other favorite podcast platforms. And again, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We really appreciate it. Really helps us out. And as soon as that new T-shirt design, it is Kyrie Irving related since he re-signed. As soon as that is finished up, I'm going to post that on Twitter, and we're going to be giving away a couple of those T-shirts. So, guys, appreciate it. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Have a great 4th of July holiday for those of you who are getting off, and we'll see you next time.